Hello and welcome once again back to Celeb Talk. PMA podcast is once again back to inspire, recharge, and make you think. Like every time we promise, we would be back with some exciting guest. And guess we have got a specialist who is known for his voice. We have got the magician known as Mr. Aniruddha Pawde from Superwork. And PMA is really glad and really proud to present to you guys. We have got a specialist from Superwork, Mr. Aniruddha Pawde, or I can say him, a podcast man. So welcome, Mr. Aniruddha Pawde, to the Celeb Talk PMA podcast.
Thank you so much. So glad that you've invited me to the podcast and really glad to be here, Dr. Das. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we are equally excited. I'm sure viewers, those who would be watching this podcast, they would really understand that why it's called an exciting podcast, because this is actually knowing from the specialist that what podcast is all about. A person who has seen all his life the journey from a radio personality, how he become a podcast man. So we'll listen to his journey, and I'm sure we'll get goosebumps when we listen to Mr. Aniruddha, how exciting his journey was, and what are the different struggles he has gone through, and what exactly made him feel that podcast is going to be the future. So, Mr. Aniruddha, before we start, I just want to tell my viewers that why Celeb Talk is so special. Every time we come back with a promise that we are here to recharge you, to make you think, give you a food for your thought. And that's what exactly is important in this life. Because PMA stands for positive mental attitude. And trust me, today, if you need something, it's just your attitude which makes the difference. So without much ado, we'll go to our guest, Mr. Aniruddha Pawde, to listen to his journey, that how exactly his 20 years of career has really helped him to start with a new journey of podcast. And before that, of course, we'd like to know the person behind the name, Mr. Aniruddha Pawde. Over to you, sir.
Lovely. So it's been a while that I got into the media industry. I started my career after my MBA in advertising. In fact, I was in sales in Mumbai. I think I realized pretty early that I'm not made for sales in general. And I was really interested in radio, and I thought, why not make a career out of radio and try to look for opportunities in Mumbai. It was really tough, though. I mean, getting into radio was really tough there. Radio, of course, had its own high during those times, and we're talking about mid-2000s. And everyone wanted to join radio stations, right? Everyone wanted to be a radio jock, and so did I. But Mumbai didn't help me much. Thankfully, got an audition and got a chance in Pune. I used to study in Pune, so Pune was very familiar. Thankfully, the kind people at the station at Radio Mirchi in Pune gave me an opportunity, got into radio. Later on, spent almost more than a decade in radio as a radio jock, worked in Pune in India, then I was in Bahrain and Dubai as well. Later, of course, I was managing a radio network in Qatar as well. So that was that. And of course, I've had various stints. I got into TV as well for a while. And then later on, finally made the move into podcasting. I realized podcasting is a fantastic space. On-demand content is, of course, something that we all love and consume every day. And I realized that potential for not just people, but for the brands using podcasts is absolutely fantastic. And that was the inspiration of, in fact, starting Superwork. Creating podcasts for brands and enterprises is the main idea of Superwork. And, that's what we do. We help businesses level up their content game, boost engagement with their stakeholders. Could be internal, could be external. But ultimately, Superwork and my team basically helps people, create engagement for brands and enterprises.
Fantastic. It's really an impressive journey. So, Aniruddha, I just want to understand here that you said that it's really helped a lot of stakeholders to take a decision and understand that how it fuels their revenue, how exactly we get a J-curve in our business. So how podcast can be interesting, of course, we'll come to that. But then I just want to know that being a radio professional, being a radio jock, how exactly it came up to you that it is the future, how podcast is going to change? Or there was something more to it, which really fueled you to think that this is now the next step. because there are still people in radio. But then you took a big leap. How exactly you felt that this is going to be the future trend, which is going to change the world and it is going to be the game changer?
Got it. So ultimately, I think the first point of realization was that appointment listening is very tough. And when I say appointment listening, for those who are not from the media industry or do not have, any particular insight into this particular term, appointment listenership is basically, or appointment viewership is basically that you have to watch and listen to your favorite content at the given time, whenever the program is broadcasted. Now, radio stations are a perfect example of appointment, consumption, because if you like a particular program, you need to be tuned in at that particular time whenever the radio DJ is present in the studio. You can't be listening to your favorite jock in the evening while the person is there in the studio in the morning. So as internet has progressed in the last few years, especially the last decade, consumption is becoming easier. People want convenience because of internet. They want to consume their favorite shows whenever they want. And of course, that is the primary factor why podcasts are picking up so well. Because, if podcast plays on a radio station, it's very, very tough. I mean, not everyone will be able to listen to their favorite podcast when they want. So ultimately, that is one factor. Interestingly, as much as people would think otherwise, long form content really works. People think that everything has to be short form. Just because reels are short form, everything else has to be short form. It's actually the other way around. People love long form content. People want to listen to interesting, engaging conversations. So that's also one factor. And ultimately, overall, what is happening is people are getting more and more choices because of YouTube, because of podcasts. They're trying to also explore more content that they otherwise wouldn't have explored, because the mediums also are of course growing now, right? I mean, earlier it was just a few handful of good channels on TV, and then it was of course your local radio station that used to serve your entertainment needs. But now it has gone beyond music for sure. And with YouTube and podcasts, the potential for people following a particular community, people following a certain podcaster has really, really grown. And trust me, podcasting has leveled up the game. No, doesn't matter what your educational experience is, at what level you are. You could be a very, very normal person, but loves maybe, say, for example, cricket. You could actually start a cricket podcast and build your own fan following. On the other hand, you could be a CEO or CHRO like yourself, or a C-suite leader wanting to engage with their employees, and you can actually start an internal podcast for your company or for your own personal podcast and engage with people and create a tribe, create a community, and you could be the leader of that community, where you're driving thoughts, you're establishing your thought leadership, you're sharing your values, your ideas. And that's the idea. And that's why, people love podcasts. And, this is what drove and inspired me to start podcasting, start Superwork as well. And that's what I try to preach my clients, my friends and family members as well. Everyone's interested in podcasting. But yeah, I mean, it's a great place to start creating content.
Now, this is really very interesting to listen. But what I basically want to understand, that a lot of people nowadays say that they are making their podcast. They're basically coming for this profession. Now, how exactly Superwork, being a one-point solution for podcasts, end-to-end solution, how exactly it's going to make it more distinguished mark? How exactly it's different from the other podcast makers? And what exactly sets you apart? How Superwork is different?
Sure. So the first thing is that we do not white label stuff. There are a lot of companies that you might come across, especially people from corporate sector, that do not have any idea of how media production works. A lot of companies could actually just literally white label stuff, right? I could take the requirement from you, get it done from someone else, and then pass it on to the client saying, this is what we've done. This is what we've produced. It might actually be that they're just trading content from someone else. So that's something that we do not do at all. The second important thing that we at Superwork focus is on attention to detail, and it's very important. Ultimately, it's not just delivering what the client wants. It's also delivering quality in terms of the content, and literally right from the kind of mics that we use, the kind of cameras that we use, the kind of talent we use to create content as well. So be it researchers, writers, top tier folks, that can create some fantastic content for you. So it's very crucial. Otherwise, someone else could just do it way cheaper. People say, ChatGPT can do this. Of course, it can do it, but it can't give you the output that a human can with a certain amount of experience and certain amount of knowledge. So that's definitely there. That's where
Exactly.
that's where we focus. Cheap, fast, and good. Yes, I mean, if you want it, we can get it done for you. But if you really want quality, if you're a sucker for quality, you should come to us. And of course, ultimately, I think these are a few things that are there. But the ultimate thing is what we really, really help people and our brands and our clients is we help them publish consistently, because consistency really matters. Doesn't matter if you're creating a podcast or you're starting an Instagram channel. If you're not consistent, it's not going to help you. So no matter what other production houses or any other person might give you an advice, if you're not consistent, it's not going to help you. So that's like a very primary thing. And overall, just an elevator pitch, like we help you do everything, right from strategy to publishing. Whatever you need is in terms of podcasting. We specialize in podcasting. We specialize in creating video content. So that's what we help you do.
So it's a complete end-to-end solution. So we can understand that how it's specialist, how you are different. So it's just not like going to a normal doctor, a specialist.
Yes.
So that's what exactly I understand as a layman.
Absolutely.
So Aniruddha, coming to an interesting part where people nowadays just imagine that podcast is just for entertainment, but how it can be a serious business tool. And how exactly it can revolutionize the entire way how people look at their advertisement. So it's no more advertisement and just trying to communicate through the podcast to your target audience group. Or sometimes I believe how we can reach to the people in the corporate fraternity, whether they're internal customers or the external customers, how we can communicate, and how do you see this entire creation of yours is going to help the market? Because I believe podcast is something very innovative in this regard.
Yeah.
And how it is innovative, I think you are the right man to explain that. So if you can just say a few things on that.
Absolutely. So ultimately, every business, every brand, every C-suite leader wants to drive engagement. Ultimately, engagement is what drives revenue. Engaged employees work better. They help people around them work better. Ultimately, you sell more product or service or whatever, and ultimately it drives revenue. Engage customers, of course, is a direct benefit as well. So engagement in this particular fast-paced world is very, very crucial, and content can help you create that. I'm not saying podcast. Content can help you create that. So ultimately you have to realize that. And of course, podcasting is one of the tools that you use, that you deploy to drive engagement. It really helps. And I'm specifically talking about podcasts now. Creating content, creating podcasts really can help you showcase your story. It can show your expertise. Now, let's take an example of a C-suite, say maybe a CEO starting their own podcast. Imagine the amount of experience that person has, and imagine the amount of stories that person can tell, the inspiration that can come through from that person. Even a person at your level, you're a CHRO, you've been mentoring so many people, so many brands, so many businesses. The amount of stories and inspiration that can be driven is absolutely amazing. And this is what brings a brand, and it could be a personal brand or it could be a company, alive with long form content, because long form content is very important. I mean, short stories, great, 30-second reels, but how many 30-second reels do you really remember, right? I mean, if I ask your audience right now, people watching this, do you remember the last reel that you saw? You don't, but you will always remember your favorite podcast, because the next time your favorite podcast episode is released, you'll be watching it, or you'll be tuning in, either, driving to work or coming back or whatever, whenever. So ultimately, the idea is that content, and specifically podcasts, help you build a tribe of people who love to follow you, who believe in the same values, who want to achieve the same mission, achieve the same goals that you want to do. You could be a brand or you could be, a person, but that's what, helps. And, once you do that, once you start creating content, once you start podcasting, the rest will automatically follow. Whatever goals that you want to achieve, if you're delivering what people want, what your audience wants, they'll of course follow, what you're asking for, and the results will follow.
That's really interesting. So I think you have already said that how exactly podcast can bring, different ways to become popular and how it helps you to reach out to your target audience group. But still, I think our audience would have a question in their mind that how exactly a normal man can think of using podcast as a solution. Because when we think of podcast, we always think that, okay, we don't have that technicalities, or maybe it is very expensive, and how we really can have even our podcast sessions. Or these are basically the work of the famous RJs who are basically there on the radio stations, and people who are like the the social influencers nowadays. There are a lot of people who make their own reels and all, and we are a bit shy in doing so.
Yeah.
So in such cases, how a common man, you imagine that somebody who is having a small business, somebody is having a boutique, someone is having a small startup, but the person is not really having those access to these wonderful gadgets, these wonderful, the sessions. So how do you see that, how Superwork is going to help that?
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, you don't need fancy equipments. Fancy tools, of course, really help. Having a great camera, having a really great mic really, really helps. But ultimately, the tech is good enough these days. Your phone is good enough. And, any common person has a decent smartphone in their hand right now. And that's a great content creation tool. So, that's the first place to start. Even if, you could be busy, at the top level, if you're a management person, or, even if you are someone who's doing a 9 to 5 and has a bit of time in the evenings to work on their podcast, it's very easy to get started. And as you grow later on, of course, you can invest in a bit of equipment, and it's not very complicated, frankly. Of course, I mean, for that matter, even driving a car is very complicated, because you need 6 months to just, you can buy a car instantly. You can't learn to drive in a day. So ultimately, you need to invest some time, and ultimately
Very
that's
true.
what happens. So, creating content using these tools.
And particularly when you are living in a place like Dubai, we understand it better.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
here you might have a car, but to get a driving license, it really takes a lot of toiling.
It still is a lot faster. When I was there, I took my driving license in Ajman. That's where my studio was. My God, I was on my knees the day I got my
Okay.
license. I was so happy. I, in fact, almost celebrated with everyone that I knew, and I have to call people and told everyone that I finally got my license after a year. But yeah, I
So
mean,
you are
those are
lucky
some
really to
stories.
get that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Interesting.
I'm not a great driver.
Okay. So now I just want to give a very good news to all my listeners and all audience who are really listening to this podcast, that PMA has really done a wonderful work. We have done and made a tie-up with Superworks. And now imagine that the combination of life skill, soft skill, mental wellness, and all this training stuff is going to be combined with the whole new universe of podcast solutions. So how do you see, Aniruddha, this entire, this combination or this merger happening, and how exactly it's going to bring a new solution altogether? What's your view on that?
Yes, very much excited for the collaboration, and the kind of amazing solution PMA also gives to their clients. We are happy to partner with PMA. Team PMA has always been, of course, very cooperative. We've loved the collaboration that we've done in the past as well. And ultimately, the life skill training, the soft skill training programs that you have, in fact, podcasting can really help deliver a better solution to your clients as well, because one, it's on demand. Any person can go through the courses again. They can watch them, listen to them, whatever the requirements might be. The tech is so great that we can actually create private podcasts now, or private content pieces now. So, only people from your company will be consuming that content, and you don't have to worry about that content being watched and shared outside the company. Of course, when you're doing training sessions, when you're doing sessions with high-end companies and specialists like PMA, of course you would want your team to be a part of it, and not anyone and everyone joining the party. So life gets easier with podcast tech that we provide as well. And creating deep engagement for audiences is the primary key, right? So if a particular solution requires creating long form content, or the other end very short form content, either of it can be done. We have fantastic production support in India, in Dubai as well. We have production support in Bahrain as well. In fact, if your clients have reach across Gulf, we have the production capability there too. And that's what you're trying to do, right? Ultimately, we are not here to make money. I mean, money is a byproduct of giving great service to clients, and that's what we're trying to do with our
Absolutely.
content.
I think the most interesting part is, people like you who are so passionate about their work. And when the passion meets profession, means it's something very unique, out of the world. And that is what makes you extraordinary. I must admit this, Aniruddha, today. So it's always an amazing experience whenever I talk to you. So
Likewise.
I'm sure, like today, when my listeners are, seeing you, they understand that what actually are the ingredients which makes a successful RJ, an RJ on video, and how exactly he is behind this entire, the evolution of podcast, and how he can mentor people. So if I can take it in this way, when you say that PMA combines with super work, so can it be possible that when we reach out to the organizations, giving them some podcast solutions, we can also concentrate on helping them to develop their training, helping how to engage the employees. Well, also, we are going to train them, create their own podcast, which can be their internal products, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is something which we can look at. They can make their series of training programs, which can be only utilized for their own employees or for their particular segment of their audience. So I think that can be a very beautiful solution. And I think this is completely an untapped market, which you are going to utilize. Yeah. So PMA Superwork is really going to bring out some wonderful podcast solutions, which will be powered with the solutions of reaching out to the entire fraternity, whether it's the internal customers or the external customers. And that is the beauty, how you communicate to the masses. And that also without any loss of transmission, without any loss of information. I think that is what the world is going to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts? How do you see this thing happening actually?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, this collaboration is that, right? Leveraging the best of both worlds, the expertise that PMA has, the production expertise that Superwork has, combining them both. And of course, I mean, you're so right. And, a person at your stature can realize this, right? Creating a content library for your current and future employees is what matters right now. You can't keep doing live webinars, right? I mean, L&D professionals and HR professionals have a big task in hand, because how many people can you keep inducting into the system? How many people can you keep training again and again? So on-demand content, on-demand training, a content library that can be easily accessed across the organization, which is customized and bespoke solution created for your company is what you need to aim for, right? Without that, right. I mean, yes, you can go to any, learning website like a Udemy and LinkedIn Learning, but those are very rounded off, very simple courses that, I think, ChatGPT frankly throws up a better solution than, these typical learning courses. So, and that's what PMA does, right? I mean, we are creating a customized solution. We are creating a bespoke solution for people, which actually delivers value. Absolutely. Otherwise, I mean, if you want to tick in a box, like, yes, fine. I mean, go and subscribe to any learning platform. But when Team PMA and Superwork are working together, we're creating a exclusive library for your employees, your team members. And that's what helps, because this is an investment for life. You don't have to keep creating content again and again. So if you're wanting to create a library that can be accessed by your future employees as well, that would be a fantastic work that you're putting in. And ultimately, I think I generally say this to everyone I come across who's passionate about podcasting or wants to explore the world of podcasting. You need to be brave. If you don't want to challenge the status quo, fine, go ahead with whatever you're doing. But if you are brave, if you're wanting to create new solutions that your employees, your team will thank you later in the future, take up podcasting, take up content creation, do what we are trying to do, PMA and Superwork together, because ultimately, rough roads, have great potential to tell great stories, right? Ultimately, beyond a point, You need to take up interesting tools, technologies that will really help you. And of course, I mean, we are experts in our respective fields. And as I mentioned earlier, ultimate objective is to help out brands and people. And, partnerships is what attracts us more rather than money on the table. As I said, everything else is a byproduct. It's the partnerships and networks that matters for PMA and Superwork more than anything else.
Absolutely. And that is why it is said that when we have the shared values and the shared interest, we really understand that what would be the potential of
Yep.
our goal. And that is why exactly we believe that bringing in people like you makes our day to introduce people, our audience, with some great minds. And that is what this session, this Celeb Talk is all about. So, like every good thing comes to an end, we are actually at the conclusion of our today's podcast. But before we go, I just want to know one thing, and this is going to be a very final question for all audience who is going to watch this podcast. What do you think if somebody is really shy and someone is not really what you call as photogenic or camera friendly, or they are really not very open to speak on public sessions? Do you think this combined service which PMA Superwork is bringing is going to be a game changer for them?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, creating content is, people think that it's a luxury, but it's actually not. It's a necessity now. Ultimately, creating content brings across your expertise to other people. You need to showcase your expertise, your values, your thoughts to other people, and life gets easier. I think, most of the people that I've mentored, coached, they've realized that their thoughts, the inhibitions they had, disappear in a day. The moment they see themselves speak and hear, and they realize that, okay, I mean, I was worried for nothing. And ultimately, people like us are there to help out.
I can do it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy. I mean, turn on the camera, start speaking. What else? I mean, you already are an expert. I mean, I can't mentor you and make you an expert in your field. That we can't do. But if you are an expert, if you know your field, we are here to help you out, produce great content.
Amazing. I think this is something which will really inspire our audience today. And I'm sure we are going to utilize your knowledge, your skill sets to start our new podcast. I'm sure this podcast is definitely going to start this thought in our audience's mind that when they are going to get the chance to start their new podcast. And very soon, we will be getting a lot of inquiries for the training that how exactly to become a great podcaster and how exactly to start our own podcast journey. So thank you once again, Mr. Aniruddha, for joining this show. And it is an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And it was really a great experience. So I'm sure we would be definitely giving the details in the scroll so that our audience can go through and they can contact us. They can contact you as well as in your LinkedIn page. Aniruddha Pawde is a big name already in the industry. And we are really keeping the positive hope in positive mental attitude that once again we'll get back a stalwart like you to inspire, to leverage, and to recharge our audience. Thank you so much, Aniruddha. Stay blessed, stay happy, and stay positive.
Thank you, and likewise.
We'll be back once again with such interesting talk with Mr. Aniruddha Pawde, maybe in some upcoming podcast. Till then, stay positive. Here, Dr. Das signing off.